The English opening is one of my favorite chess openings of all time, and in this video I will be teaching you some very important middle game strategies for the English. Usually when you play the English, black plays pawn to e5, you can play pawn to g3, bishop to g2, and go for a light square control strategy. As I have explained in previous videos, it's worth watching them after this one if you haven't seen those yet. Here black can play also c6 or e6 as my opponent is doing here, which means they will go for a very quick d5. And all of those positions where black goes for a very quick d5 are completely different from the normal English. So it is important to know the middle game plans for those as well. I am going to continue as if we were playing the English, and I was going to say my opponent is most likely going to play pawn to d5. Whenever this happens, you have multiple options. I will show you a variation that you can play with exchanging and then putting your pawn on d4. Well, I do recommend this because I think this is a very easy way to play as white. It is not always the sharpest line, but it is a very simple strategy that you can use against this setup by black. So that is why I would recommend playing this. It's also what I play. So we have d4, d5, and we are just going to continue with bishop here to g2 so that we can attack this pawn. Usually, in the English, we want to watch out where we develop our knight on the king side. So usually what I would recommend is to play something like pawn e3, knight to e2. Then we can also go to f4 in the future, some variations like that. We usually don't want to play knight to f3 because the knight's not really going to have any purpose over there. It's going to be blocking in our own bishop. So a very interesting strategy that you can play here, which hasn't been played that much, is to play this knight to h3, which looks a little bit strange at first sight. You are developing a knight to the edge of the board. That's like wrong if you follow the beginner opening principles. And you can see your knight is also immediately being attacked. So it looks like we did something strange, but that's actually not the case. Because we can play knight to f4, and the moment we get the knight here, we basically have three pieces all working together attacking this d5 pawn. So that is a very interesting strategy that you can use that is not really played that much. Is to play this structure, try to fight against this d5 pawn, and then develop your knight like this. Black is castling long here. Of course, they can also develop pieces. For example, we castle short, they castle short. That type of structure is also possible. But here they castle long, which is also fine in this position for black. But it's just going to mean that we will have a bit of a more dynamic game. So we are going to be explaining here what to do if they castle long. Well, there are a couple of things. First of all, since this bishop is here, usually it is worth actually sacrificing your knight for this bishop and this particular position. Why? Well, black castled long. That means they might be playing g5 in the future and just kick away our knight anyways. So we could just trade and then we open up our bishop and we kind of slow down the plan by black as well. Any other variation where, for example, they castle queenside, let's say they play this, for example. We castle kingside, they castle kingside. You can also play this, but there is less purpose behind the move because you are just opening up this rook, and black was probably not going to play this move anyways. But here I think it is especially important that we trade this for the bishop. It might also open up some opportunities for attack in the future. That's not really the case here. So we are basically going to have an opposite side castling game. Black has castled on the queen side, we castled on the king side. We actually didn't castle yet, but we probably should on the next move. One thing that I like with opposite side castling positions is to think before you castle, is there any other move that you can play that makes sense? Because the moment you castle, you kind of give your opponent your address. You're telling them, hey, my king is here, you can start attacking me now. If you still keep the king in the center, you have a little bit more flexibility. So what I am going to do is I'm going to play a3 first because I am stopping two moves from black. Plus, that is also helping us to push b4 more quickly. If I wanted to, I could have also castled on the previous move. That would have been fine. If you are not a super strong tactical player, probably that might even been a better option. But in general, I like to wait a little bit with castling. Usually I will still castle in a couple of moves, but I like to wait a little bit. Black is trying to use the fact that our king is in the center and basically start an attack. They are pushing this pawn. So I do have to do some quick calculation. If we take this, most likely they will capture, and I don't really see a big problem. I think we can castle. They might be able to push here with the pawn, but yeah, there's not really any reason that we would be in trouble. So I am going to exchange and I am going to castle. Because as I said, I still want to be safe. I still don't want to take any risks with my king. Don't want to keep it too long in the center with like all of these pieces lining up, potentially opening up the position. They attack the knight, so we have to move it. Or at least I think we have to move it. Because I don't really see any other options. I think knight e4 would probably be a good move. We also do have the bishop here lined up, so I think we might actually also be able to play queen to b3 and just start a counter attack as well. Because if you play queen to b3 and if they take the knight, that would be checkmate. If you are playing somebody rated 1500 or less, I think honestly you just have to play queen b3. Black will probably have to set up this structure to stop the checkmate, and I think then we might even be able to pin the pawn to their queen, and somehow we still keep our knight here. The other option, of course, is to just move our knight, which might lead to exchanges, and our bishop also left its defensive square, so I think that position is a little bit awkward. It's playable, but it's a little bit awkward, so I'm going to see if we can try to do the checkmate first. They won't fall for the checkmate. And now we can still play this, or we can also play rook to d1. And in general, I think this is a good move order because we want to attack the queen side, right? We are attacking the queen side. That is what we want to do if our opponent's castled on the queen side. And our knight can also help with that. It can also help with attacking the queen side. It can go into all of these squares. And if we move it to the center, it's basically aiming towards the wrong side of the board. So I think that is why this was an interesting sequence of moves. But now we do have to calculate quite a lot because in every position we have to think about them potentially grabbing this. They move the king. That stops some threats, but it also activates some other plans. I think there are a couple of things we can do, but honestly, this tension is quite a lot on our knight. And I don't always like to keep positions like this for too long, because you will just increase the amount of calculation you need to do on every move. If you are playing over the board in a tournament or in a club, yeah, you can probably leave your knight hanging if you want. You have the time to calculate everything. In an online game, I think these types of things are dangerous because you might miss a tactic at any point. So moving the knight is not a bad plan. I think knight a4, as I said, and we are getting closer to the queen side in a sense. So we have the knight in the right position here to try and attack something. The second thing is, of course, we want to always think about activating more pieces. Since they castled on the queen side, we want to use more pieces to attack. We right now have one of our pieces which is basically doing nothing. It's still on the starting square, and we can just develop it and also start attacking towards the queen side. So I think that is a very good move here, just this. Okay, so our opponent is kind of wasting a little bit of time. They are just, zigzagging with the pieces, but it's all right. And now we have a position where it's basically 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces already working together to attack this queen side. Plus, also, by the way, our opponents just dropped the free pawn in the center as well. But I think they would have had a very difficult time defending the knight anyways. I'm honestly not really sure how they would have defended. Because I was thinking if they defend with the queen, it's also, everything is pinned basically. So they were also going to be in trouble. So you can see that the black position is very defensive. Black is really trying to hold on, trying not to lose on the spot. And basically they are already, in a way, losing on the spot. So what am I thinking in all of these types of positions? You want to start calculating tactics, and that means you want to go through the CCT strategy. So checks, captures, and threats. So you have to calculate the checks, the captures, and the threats. Usually I start with the checks first, but this is just giving away queen. So that's not going to be the right move. This capture might be possible. They can recapture. And the question is, do we see something immediately? Well, I do think we always have this move, knight to c5, attack the queen, also try to threaten the checkmate. But I think they can probably, move the queen, guard the square, and guard everything basically. There might be more tactics, but I think for most of you, it's going to be already quite complex to see what's going on in this position. Even for me, it's a little bit difficult to see exactly what's happening. Rook d4 is also a good move. It also wins as a pawn and it pins the bishop. So that is going to be the move that I will play because I think it's the simplest move. And now we still have this plan with knight c5 on the next move if we wanted to, or even still capturing here. So I am always going to do CCT for every single move. I won't calculate this again, but I am thinking, what if I take this? If they take with the bishop, I win a queen. If they take with the rook, I might be able to double up, but I don't really see anything. I think they might still be able to hold on. It's getting very tricky for black, but they might still be able to hold on. If you have a lot of time, of course, you have to calculate more, but I won't drag it out too much here for this video, since I am trying to simulate online rapid play, basically. So yeah, I think knight c5, the T, CCT, checks captures threats. I think that is a good threat. Since this capture and this capture, I don't really see much happening. This is a simple threat. We are threatening checkmate in a way if the queen goes to the wrong square, and we basically can just do this. If they capture, we take the queen. Okay, so they move, and they still protect the checkmate. So we have to think again CCT, but this is quite a complex position. So CCT, the check is this, but the check's not going to work most likely, because I think at the end of the line, yeah, we are just giving away some material. Probably I think we can try to win back some material as well in that line, but it's just, yeah, not necessary right now to give away the queen. And so I have to calculate the captures. This is the first capture we want to calculate, capturing this. They cannot capture with the queen because that would be a checkmate. So you can see we have to start calculating tactics here. They can capture like this. And if we take the rook, they can't capture with the queen. That would be a checkmate. So they have to capture with the rook. And I think then we might also just be winning a pawn. So I can already see that we have a winning variation if we take this with the bishop. I am still going to take the time to calculate this as well. So we capture this, and I think then we can also just take this. The queen can't be captured because that's checkmate. So this variation where we go in with the rook first will always lead to checkmate, unless if they just accept the loss of a piece, plus the rook will be pinned to the queen, to the king. So I calculated both variations, and that is also what I recommend. With the CCT, you want to calculate all checks, captures, and threats. Even if you already see something, it's usually worth it to calculate a little bit longer. And by doing that, I was able to find that there was something wrong with my opponent's position, and I can basically win material. And this is very often going to be the case in these types of positions. As you can see, my opponent is hanging on. He is trying to hang on. He is under attack by so many pieces. Like, we have 4 pieces lined up. All of his pieces are in defensive position. So you really do need to use your CCT and calculate that. I think we can just grab this, honestly, and that's just a check and a capture. Yeah, I think we can just honestly grab this, and it's a check and a capture. So it looks fine. I also like in these types of positions to just further put some extra pressure. For example, this, put an extra rook in there, because still they cannot take this because that would be checkmate. I think we could also honestly just grab the free pawn as well. I think that would also be fine. But I am going to be a good example of attacking play, and I will activate an extra attacker first before I do anything else. So that is the T for the threat. Yeah, I think we have a lot of things going on still. If we capture this, the queen can never recapture in any case, because if the queen ever recaptures, it's always going to be mate. So most likely they will have to capture this with the knight. But if we trade too many pieces, I think we might also be heading towards a little bit of an awkward position. Our bishop is still hanging, but it's also with a counter checkmate. So I think in this position, this capture will be our CCT solution. Yeah, because this is also a capture that we can do, but we can also delay it. This is building up the pressure and we can grab an extra pawn. But honestly, in this position, I think every single move that I could potentially think about and that I could potentially play, I honestly think all of them work. By the way, I'm not worried about back rank threats because we are pinning This is one of the most tactical positions I have had in a long time. But yeah, I think every move should work here, but usually the right moves will be the CCT solutions. I do think right now it might be interesting to capture this again. If you think, okay, I'm going to grab the rook, probably it's fine. If you think I'm going to grab the knight, yeah, it's probably fine as well. I mean, even this looks like it's going to be, wow, I think even grabbing this knight might even be more impressive. Because if they take back with the rook, they got forward. If they take back with the queen, they get checkmated, right? So yeah, I think that might be a plan, but probably this was also a plan. Taking this with check was also a plan. We are already now in a position where I think honestly it doesn't matter. And we can just start exchanging all of the material. Okay, I'm just going to exchange a little bit more material. Let's see. And now, of course, we have 2 extra pieces, but we still want to be careful because our opponent has a queen. And as long as they have a queen, they still have some type of opportunity to play, to do counterplay, basically. So I am thinking, is there a check I can do with my knight? I think honestly this check and this check could both be fine. If you still have quite some time, I think it's worth calculating. But I think we might be able to even do a checkmate here in this position. Because the king looks like it's in so much trouble. I was actually thinking if this works, this check, and if they take the knight, I feel like they should be in a position where we have a checkmate. Or at least we can trade the queen and then just get an endgame which is winning. And I think that's actually going to be my variation. And you might think, wait, isn't that a little bit crazy? You are giving away a free knight on purpose. But the thing that I always like to do is simplify in the endgame. So I am not somebody who is going to try to finish the endgame as quickly as possible. I am somebody who is just going to try to make sure that he doesn't make any mistakes. And as long as the queen is still there, we still have potential calculation mistakes. How do you win an endgame like this? Well, it's actually quite easy because 1, we have an extra bishop, 2, we have 2 extra pawns. This basically means we can just play whatever we want. I am going to see what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually push this pawn, and I am going to set up this structure with the bishop and the pawn. All right. And the good advantage here is that we always just have a king versus king battle, but we have the extra piece. And as long as we have the extra piece, we will always have the upper hand because we can keep wasting moves with our piece. We can go in with the king. We are basically going to completely outplay them. I am going to crease their pawns, crease this pawn. So now they only have legal moves with the king, and now I can just go in with my king. And usually these types of positions can be annoying because they can always, maneuver with the king, basically. But here, since we also have the bishop, I do have to watch out for stalemate, but they still have this move. Since we also have the bishop, I think it is fine. This push, I don't know if it makes sense. Oops, yeah, I thought I was in analysis mode. Now we played it. I was going to say, I don't know if it actually makes sense. Because I have to watch out I don't put him into a Zeus one. Or in a stalemate, in a stalemate. But he still has this square. So yeah, I honestly think I can just continue. I mean, this is never going to do anything because he is not in stalemate, right? He still has this move. He still has a legal move. And if I go here, he still has a legal move as well. I was wondering if there was actually going to be a knight promotion flex, a checkmate, but I don't think that's going to be the case. All right, and this is going to be checkmate. I think we have multiple different checkmates. All right, I hope this was useful. If you want to see me show strategies for different openings as well, leave a comment and that's it.